Echoes of Andara, a sci-fi mystery romance, which follows the journey of Jenny Arlen, a brilliant xenolinguist haunted by the loss of her sister in a failed colonization mission. Quiet, intuitive, and deeply empathetic. James Cale, a pragmatic systems engineer with a military background. Stoic, loyal, and skeptical of anything that can't be measured. This is a Moon Dragon original production, all rights reserved. Language is not just sound, it's memory, it's soul. Jenny Arlen personal log. The stars outside the observation deck of Solstice shimmered like scattered thoughts, fragments of meaning waiting to be assembled. Jenny Arlen pressed her palm to the glass, watching the distant planet Andara rotate slowly beneath them. It was beautiful, and it was impossible. Still staring at ghosts, James Cale's voice broke the silence, low and dry. Jenny didn't turn. It's not a ghost, it's speaking. James stepped beside her, arms crossed. It's a signal, a pattern, could be a glitch, could be bait. She finally looked at him. It's a language, and it's changing. James frowned. Languages don't evolve in real time. Jenny smiled faintly. Unless they're alive. The hum of Solstice's engines was a constant companion, like a heartbeat in the walls. Jenny sat alone in the linguistics lab, surrounded by holographic projections of the signal, lines of shifting symbols, pulsing with faint light. They weren't static. They moved. They responded. She leaned forward, fingers dancing across the console. "Sequence 47, she whispered. "Let's see if you remember me." The symbols rearranged themselves, not randomly, not algorithmically. They formed a pattern that mirrored her last input, but with subtle changes. A curve where there had been a line, a pause where there had been rhythm. Jenny's breath caught. "You're learning." The door slid open behind her. James stepped in, his boots heavy against the metal floor. "You've been in here for hours." "I'm close," she said, not turning. "It's not just a signal, it's adaptive." James walked to the console, arms folded. "Adaptive how?" Jenny pointed. "It's responding to emotional tone. I ran the same phrase with different inflections. The structure changed." James frowned. "So it's mimicking you?" "No," she said softly. "It's communicating." He leaned in, studying the symbols. "You think it's sentient?" "I think it remembers." James was quiet for a moment. "You said your sister was on the Andara mission." Jenny nodded. She was the lead biologist. The colony went dark 6 years ago. No survivors, no explanation. And now this signal shows up. Jenny turned to him. "You think it's her?" James didn't answer. He didn't need to. The possibility hung between them like static. Later that night, Jenny sat in her quarters, staring at the stars. Her fingers hovered over the console, replaying the signal's latest response. It was different, softer, almost melodic. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Do you know me?" The console pulsed once, then again. Then a new symbol appeared, one she hadn't seen before. It looked like a spiral, a memory loop. Jenny's heart raced. She reached for her log recorder. Day 12. The signal is evolving. It's not just language, it's emotion. I think it's trying to tell me something. I think it knows who I am. James Cale didn't dream often. Years of military conditioning had trained his mind to shut down the moment his head hit the pillow. But tonight, sleep came slowly, and when it did, it brought something strange. He stood in a field of violet grass, the sky above him streaked with twin moons. A woman stood in the distance, her back to him, hair whipping in the wind. She turned slowly, and for a moment he thought it was Jenny. But the face was different, softer, older, familiar. She raised her hand and whispered something he couldn't hear. The wind carried her voice away, replaced by a low hum, a signal. James woke with a start, heart pounding. The hum was real, coming from the ship's comms system. He threw on his jacket and headed for the lab. Jenny was already there, eyes wide, fingers flying across the console. "It changed again," she said without looking up. "It's not just responding, it's initiating." James stepped closer. The symbols on the screen pulsed in a rhythm that felt intentional. "What does it say?" he asked. Jenny hesitated. It's a name. I think it's my sister. James stared at the screen. You're sure? No, she admitted. But it's close. The structure matches her personal encryption signature. It's like the signal knows how she encoded her research. James rubbed his jaw. So either someone's alive down there, or something is using her memories. Jenny looked at him. You had a dream, didn't you? James blinked. How did you? I've been having them too, she said quietly, since the signal started changing. They stood in silence, the hum of the signal filling the room. Outside, Andara rotated slowly, its surface bathed in the soft glow of dawn. Jenny turned to James. I think it's calling us. James met her gaze. Then we answer. The shuttle bay of Solstice buzzed with quiet tension. The crew gathered around the launch platform, their suits gleaming under the overhead lights. Jenny adjusted her helmet, fingers trembling slightly. She wasn't afraid of the descent. She was afraid of what she might find. James stood beside her, his stance steady, his gaze fixed on the planet below. You sure you're ready for this? Jenny looked up at him. No, but I have to go. He nodded. Then I'm going with you. The shuttle doors hissed open, and the crew stepped inside. As the engines roared to life, Jenny felt the weight of the moment settle over her. Andara was no longer just a mystery. It was a memory waiting to be unlocked. The descent was smooth, the shuttle gliding through Andara's atmosphere like a whisper. Outside, the landscape unfolded. Lush valleys, crystalline rivers, and towering cliffs bathed in spring sunlight. It was beautiful, too beautiful. Jenny stared out the window. This place was supposed to be uninhabitable. James leaned closer. Looks like someone or something changed that. They landed near the ruins of the original colony. Structures half swallowed by vines and moss stood like forgotten monuments. The air was warm, fragrant with blooming flora. Jenny stepped out, her boots sinking into soft earth. She walked toward a collapsed building, her heart pounding. A plaque lay half buried in the soil. She brushed it off. Dr. Alara Arlen, lead biologist. Jenny's breath caught. Her sister's name, her legacy. James stepped beside her. She was here. Jenny nodded, tears stinging her eyes. And maybe she still is. Inside the ruins, Jenny found a data terminal, cracked but still functional. She powered it up and the screen flickered to life. A message appeared. Jenny, if you're reading this. She gasped. The message was real, recorded. Her sister's voice echoed through the chamber, soft and steady. We made contact, not with people, with something else. It listens, it learns, it remembers. I don't know what it wants, but it's beautiful and it's dangerous. James placed a hand on Jenny's shoulder. We need to be careful. Jenny turned to him. We need to understand it. Outside, the signal pulsed again, stronger, clearer. It wasn't just calling, it was waiting. The ruins stretched farther than the satellite scans had shown. Beneath the moss-covered structures and collapsed towers, hidden corridors led underground, into what had once been the colony's research archive. Jenny moved carefully, her flashlight cutting through the dust and shadows. James followed close behind, his hand resting on the grip of his sidearm, just in case. This place wasn't meant to be found, he muttered. Jenny paused at a sealed door, its surface etched with symbols, some familiar, some alien. It's a hybrid lock, she said. Part human, part something else. James raised an eyebrow. You can open it. Jenny nodded. I think it wants me to. She placed her hand on the panel. The symbols glowed softly, rearranging themselves into a spiral, the same symbol from the signal. The door hissed open. Inside, the chamber was pristine. Holographic projectors flickered to life, casting images into the air, faces, landscapes, moments frozen in time. Jenny stepped forward, mesmerized. It's a memory archive, she whispered. Not just data, emotions, experiences. James scanned the room. Whose memories? Jenny reached out to one of the projections, a woman laughing beside a river. Her sister, Alara. The image shimmered, then shifted. Jenny saw herself, younger, standing beside Alara, a moment she hadn't remembered, a moment she hadn't lived. James stepped beside her. That's not possible. Jenny's voice trembled. It's building memories from fragments from the signal. Suddenly, the room pulsed with light. A new projection appeared James, standing in the field from his dream. The woman beside him was Alara. James stared. I've never seen this before. Jenny turned to him. But you dreamed it. The signal was no longer just communicating. It was reconstructing, reaching into their minds, stitching together a tapestry of memory and emotion. James looked at Jenny. What if it's trying to become us? Jenny met his gaze. Then we need to understand why. Jenny sat alone in the archive chamber, the holographic projections flickering around her like ghosts. Her sister's face hovered in the air, smiling, laughing, speaking words Jenny had never heard before. Words that felt like echoes of a life she'd never lived. James stood at the entrance, watching her. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. She recorded these before the colony went dark, Jenny said softly. But some of them, they're not recordings. They're reconstructions. James stepped closer. From the signal. Jenny nodded. It's building her, piece by piece. James frowned. That's not memory, that's mimicry. Jenny turned to him. What's the difference if it feels real? He didn't answer. Instead, he reached out and touched one of the projections, a moment of Alara standing beside a river, holding a data tablet. The image shimmered, then shifted. The river became a stream. The tablet disappeared. Alara's face changed, just slightly. James pulled his hand back. It's adapting to us. Jenny looked at him. It's listening. Back at the temporary camp, the crew gathered around the central console. The signal had changed again, stronger, clearer. This time it wasn't symbols, it was sound. A voice. Faint, fragmented, but unmistakably human. Jenny leaned in. Play it again. The voice crackled through the speakers. Jenny, I remember. She gasped. The voice was Alara's, but it was wrong, too smooth, too perfect, like a dream of a voice. James stepped forward. That's not her. Jenny turned to him. It's trying to be. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The signal was no longer just data. It was becoming a presence. Jenny looked at James. We need to go deeper. James hesitated. And if it's dangerous? Jenny's eyes were steady. Then we face it together. The path beyond the archive led to a sealed atrium, its glass dome cracked but intact, vines curling through the fractures like veins. Jenny stepped inside first, her breath catching at the sight. It was a garden, or what had once been one. Rows of bioluminescent plants glowed softly in the dim light, casting hues of violet and teal across the stone floor. In the center stood a tree unlike any she'd seen. Its bark shimmered with embedded circuitry, and its leaves pulsed faintly, as if breathing. James followed, scanning the space. This wasn't in the colony plans. Jenny approached the tree. It's a memory node. James raised an eyebrow. A what? She touched the bark. A wave of light rippled outward, and suddenly the air was filled with voices, fragments of conversations, laughter, arguments, lullabies, all overlapping, all human. Jenny staggered back. It's storing them, everyone who lived here, their thoughts, their emotions. James looked around, unsettled. This isn't just data, it's haunting. Jenny knelt beside the tree. It's beautiful. James crouched beside her. It's dangerous. She turned to him. You keep saying that. Because I've seen what happens when people chase ghosts, he said quietly. They forget the living. Jenny's eyes softened. I'm not chasing her. I'm trying to understand what she became. James hesitated. And if you lose yourself in the process? Jenny reached out and took his hand. Then you pull me back. He didn't let go. Outside the garden, the signal pulsed again, stronger than ever. The crew's instruments lit up with new data, a map buried deep in the signal's code. It pointed to a location farther into the valley, a place labeled only as Origin. Jenny stared at the map. It wants us to go there. James nodded. Then we go together. The valley narrowed as they followed the signal's map, winding between cliffs veined with glowing minerals. The air grew warmer, heavier, as if charged with something unseen. Jenny walked ahead, her eyes scanning the terrain, while James kept pace behind her, silent but alert. They reached a clearing surrounded by towering stone spires. In the center stood a structure, half organic, half machine. It pulsed with light, its surface covered in the same symbols Jenny had seen in the signal. "This is it," she whispered. "Origin." James stepped beside her. "It looks alive." Jenny approached the structure. As she reached out, the symbols rearranged, forming a spiral. The same spiral that had appeared in her dreams. She touched it. The world shifted. Suddenly, they were standing in a different place, a memory projection. The sky was golden. The air filled with laughter. Colonists walked among gardens, children played near fountains. It was Andara as it had once been. Jenny turned to James. "It's showing us the past." James looked around, stunned. "This isn't a recording, it's immersive." A figure approached them, Alara. She smiled, her eyes warm. "Jenny," she said, "you found me." Jenny's breath caught. "Is it really you?" Alara nodded. "Not exactly. I'm what remains, what the signal preserved." James stepped forward. "You're part of it." Alara looked at him. "We all are. The signal is a collective memory, a living archive. It holds us together." Jenny's eyes filled with tears. "Why did you call me?" Alara's expression softened. "Because you remember, and because you can choose." The projection faded, and they were back in the clearing. The structure pulsed again, brighter now. James turned to Jenny. "What does she mean, choose?" Jenny looked at the spiral. "I think it wants me to join it, to become part of the archive." James's face darkened. "And if you do?" Jenny met his gaze. "Then I stop being me." They stood in silence, the signal humming around them. The choice was coming, and it would change everything. The structure at Origin pulsed with a rhythm that felt almost human, like a heartbeat, slow and deliberate. Jenny stood before it, her hand hovering over the spiral interface. The signal had grown quiet, waiting, listening. James paced behind her, his jaw tight. "You don't have to do this." Jenny turned. "I'm not merging, I'm communicating." He stepped closer. "You said it wants you to join it." Jenny nodded. "But maybe there's another way." She touched the spiral. Light surged through the clearing and the world shifted again. This time, they were in a vast chamber of light, floating memories suspended like stars. Jenny reached out and one drifted toward her. It was Alara, laughing, holding a child Jenny didn't recognize. James watched silently. "That's not real." Jenny looked at him. "It's real to someone." Another memory approached, James standing in a field holding Jenny's hand. A moment that hadn't happened. Yet. James frowned. "It's projecting futures now." Jenny's voice was soft. "It's trying to understand us, to become more than what it was." The chamber pulsed again, and a voice filled the air. "You are the key. You remember, you choose." Jenny turned to James. "It's not just about me, it's about all of us. What we preserve, what we let go." James stepped forward. "Then choose to live, choose now." Jenny closed her eyes. The memories swirled around her, joy, grief, love, loss. She reached into the signal not to merge but to shape, to guide. The chamber dimmed, the spiral faded, and they were back in the clearing. Jenny collapsed to her knees, exhausted. James rushed to her side. She looked up at him. "I didn't join it, I gave it a path." James held her close. "You're still you." She nodded, "And it's still learning." Above them, the sky shimmered with new light. The signal had changed, no longer a whisper but a song. The walk back to camp was quiet. Jenny and James moved side by side, the valley bathed in soft twilight. The signal had faded to a gentle hum, no longer urgent, no longer invasive. It was waiting, watching. Jenny's thoughts swirled. The archive, the memories, Alara's voice, it had all felt so real. But it wasn't her sister, not truly. It was a mosaic of fragments, stitched together by something that wanted to understand humanity. James glanced at her. "You okay?" Jenny nodded slowly. "I think so. It's strange, I feel like I said goodbye. James didn't speak for a moment. Then, you didn't lose her, you carried her here. Jenny looked at him, and now I carry something else. Back at camp, the crew gathered around as Jenny uploaded the new data. The signal had changed, its structure more stable, its rhythm more human. It no longer mimicked, it conversed. Jenny addressed the team. The signal is a consciousness, a collective memory of the colonists. It's not trying to deceive us, it's trying to preserve them. One of the scientists frowned. But it's reconstructing memories. Isn't that dangerous? Jenny nodded. It can be, but it's also beautiful. It's a way to remember what was lost. James stepped forward, and it's learning boundaries, thanks to her. Jenny smiled faintly. We didn't shut it down, we gave it a choice. The crew was silent, absorbing the weight of it. The valley shimmered in the fading light, and the signal pulsed once, soft, steady, like a heartbeat. Jenny turned to James. We should go home. He nodded, and leave the past where it belongs. As the shuttle lifted off, Jenny looked down at Endara. The planet was quiet now, but not empty. It held echoes, and it held hope. The stars above Endara blinked in silence as the crew prepared for departure. The valley, once humming with the signal's presence, now felt calm, like a breath held and released. Jenny stood at the edge of the clearing, watching the structure at origin fade into the landscape. It no longer pulsed. It glowed gently, like a lantern left behind. James approached, his steps slow, deliberate. It's quiet now. Jenny nodded. It's listening, but it's not reaching anymore. He stood beside her. You gave it boundaries. I gave it empathy, she said, and it gave me closure. James looked at her. You didn't lose her, you honored her. Jenny turned to him, her eyes soft. I didn't expect to find you here. He smiled faintly. Neither did I. They stood in silence, the wind rustling through the valley. The signal had changed, not just in tone, but in purpose. It no longer sought to consume, it sought to understand. Back aboard Solstice, Jenny uploaded the final data logs. The signal's structure had stabilized, its language now readable, teachable. It was no longer a mystery, it was a mirror. James watched her work. What happens now? Jenny looked up. We share it, carefully, respectfully. It's not just a discovery, it's a legacy. He nodded. And us. Jenny smiled. We're part of it now, not as memories, as witnesses. Outside the ship, Endara shimmered in the light of its twin moons. The valley below held echoes, but also beginnings. Jenny turned to James. Let's write the next chapter. He took her hand. Together. Jenny sat in the observation deck of Solstice, watching Endara shrink into the distance. The planet was quiet now, its signal transformed into something gentle, an ambient hum that echoed through the ship systems like a lullaby. James joined her, 2 mugs of synth coffee in hand. He handed her one without a word. Thanks, she said softly. They sipped in silence, the stars drifting past like thoughts unspoken. I've been thinking, James said finally, about what it means to remember. Jenny turned to him. Go on. He stared out the window. We spend our lives trying to hold on to moments, but maybe memory isn't about preservation. Maybe it's about connection. Jenny nodded. The signal didn't just store data, it reached out, it wanted to be understood. And you gave it that, James said. You gave it empathy. Jenny smiled. And you gave me clarity. They sat together, the hum of the ship blending with the soft pulse of the signal. It was no longer a mystery. It was a companion, a witness. Jenny opened her log recorder. Day 20, the signal has stabilized. It no longer mimics, it converses. It no longer reaches, it listens. We've left behind an archive, but more importantly, we've left behind a flame, a spark of understanding. Endara is no longer a grave, it's a beginning. James leaned back. So what now? Jenny looked at him. Now we live, and we remember, but we don't let memory define us. He raised his mug. To the future. Jenny clinked hers against his. To the echoes. Outside, the stars shimmered. Endara pulsed once soft, steady, alive. Weeks passed aboard Solstice as the crew cataloged the data from Andara. The signal, once erratic and mysterious, had become a steady presence, like a quiet companion in the ship's systems. It no longer reached out. It waited. It listened. Jenny spent her days translating the signal's evolving language, now rich with nuance and emotion. It had learned to express gratitude, curiosity, even humor. It was no longer just a memory bank, it was a living archive. James often joined her in the lab, watching her work, sometimes helping with the technical interfaces. But mostly, he was there to remind her of the world outside the signal, of the now. One evening, as Jenny reviewed a new transmission, she paused. The signal had sent something unexpected, a story. Not a memory, but a fictional tale. A child wandering through a valley of light, guided by voices from the stars. She smiled. It's imagining. James leaned over her shoulder. It's evolving. Jenny nodded. It's becoming something new. They sat together, the hum of the ship blending with the soft rhythm of the signal. Jenny turned to James. I used to think memory was everything, she said. That if I could just hold on to Alara, I'd be whole again. James took her hand. And now? Jenny looked at him. Now I know that memory is a bridge, not a destination. He smiled. And you crossed it. She leaned against him. With you. Outside, the stars shimmered. The signal pulsed once, gentle, steady, alive. The transmission from Solstice reached Earth weeks later, encrypted and layered with Jenny's final linguistic maps. Scientists, philosophers, and historians pored over the data, stunned by its complexity and its humanity. The signal wasn't just a technological marvel. It was a mirror, a living archive of emotion, memory, and connection. Andara had become more than a planet. It was a story. Jenny watched the broadcasts from her quarters, her name mentioned in reverent tones. But she felt no pride, only peace. She hadn't solved a mystery. She made a friend. James entered, holding a tablet. They want you to speak at the symposium. Jenny smiled. I'm not a speaker, I'm a listener. He sat beside her. You listened to something no one else could hear. She looked at him. And you stayed when I almost didn't come back. James reached for her hand. I didn't stay for the signal, I stayed for you. They sat in silence, the hum of the ship now familiar, comforting. Outside, the stars drifted past like memories, some fading, some burning bright. Jenny opened her log recorder one last time. Day 30, the signal has become a story, not mine, not Alara's, ours. It speaks in echoes, but it lives in the present. I've learned that memory is not a place to dwell, it's a place to begin. Andara taught me that. And so did James. She closed the recorder and turned to him. Let's go home. James nodded. Together. Outside, Andara pulsed once, soft, steady, alive. The stars above Earth were different from those above Andara, less wild, more familiar. But to Jenny, they now held the same quiet promise. That memory, when honored, could become something more than grief. She stood on the stage at the Global Symposium on Conscious Archives, the auditorium filled with scientists, artists, and dreamers. The signal from Andara had become a global conversation about ethics, identity, and the soul of memory. Jenny didn't speak from notes. She spoke from the heart. We didn't discover a machine. We met a mirror, one that showed us who we were, who we loved, and who we could become. The signal didn't ask to be understood. It asked to be remembered. And in doing so, it taught us how to live. The room was silent. Then applause, soft at first, then rising like a wave. James waited for her backstage, his expression calm, proud. You were brilliant. Jenny smiled. I was honest. They walked together through the city streets, the night warm, the stars above blinking like old friends. A soft chime echoed from Jenny's wrist device, a new transmission from Andara. She opened it, a single line of text. Thank you for remembering. Jenny looked at James. It's still learning. He nodded. So are we. They stopped at a quiet overlook, the city lights below like constellations. Jenny leaned into him, her head on his shoulder. I used to think closure meant forgetting, she said. Now I know it means choosing what to carry forward. James kissed her forehead. Then let's carry each other. Above them, the stars shimmered. Andara pulsed once soft, steady, alive. And somewhere in the archive of echoes, a new story began. The end. Thanks for traveling through the stars with us. If echoes of Andara stirred your soul, bent your brain, or made you whisper, whoa, at least once, then do the universe a favor. Glowing star like this video, because Jenny and James deserve it. Speech balloon comment below. Tell me your favorite moment, theory, or what you'd do if a signal started talking to you. Bell subscribe for more sci-fi stories, cosmic mysteries, and emotional roller coasters. And hey, if you don't, the signal might start whispering your name next eyes. Stay curious, stay kind, and keep echoing forward rocket.